We'll go ahead and get this committee meeting started. We'll start with House Bill number 82. Our community and junior colleges authorized to administer construction contracts of $1 million or less and exempt certain oversight. I'm going to recognize Mr. Scott Alsobrooks of East Mississippi to explain the necessity for this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members, for having me today. House Bill 82, if approved, will help community colleges expedite purchases of things like boilers and chillers and these kind of items. When they go out, it's typically an emergency, and sometimes it's tough on us to expedite these projects using bond funds. So these if this approved, we can use our state bond funds to expedite these purchases and get the heating and cooling back on in buildings like dorms and classroom buildings and things like that. So that's what the ask for is in House Bill 82. That's what we're hoping for.
Currently, what do you have to do right now when these go out? What's the process or you're having to go through that's causing the problem?
We have to go through the Bureau of Buildings at DFA and go through that whole process, which really, it takes time, and it's valuable time when you're building a new building and going through that type of process for a big building. But to replace a chiller, something that we can follow state contracting law on and bid out and get some good reputable contractors to bid it, it will speed the process up tremendously, and that's really what we're looking for here, is be able to expedite projects, because when a chiller's down or if you got a major damage to some roof or whatnot, you need to replace a leaky roof under $1 million type project, we can expedite that and get that turned around really quick.
Would y'all still follow up with DFA to let them know what's taking place, or just because they are kind of the overseer of all the property?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. This will still be a notification process where they will still have to release the funds to us. So when we send that to Mr. Cornbreck, we'll have an application. Hey, we're requesting $400,000 or whatever for a chiller. We're going to bid it out using state laws and contractors in the region or area to come in and do an R&R on that chiller for us. So we will still work with DFA, but we won't have to use them to do the bidding and such. We can do that through our business office and expedite that process, and really won't burden DFA and the Bureau of Buildings with these small projects, when they're overseeing dorms and big classroom buildings and really large projects. These small projects will really ease their workload as well. So it'll be a win-win for community colleges and the DFA.
All right. Are there any questions from the committee on the bill? Senator Sparks, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this a lump sum fund that's out there for all community colleges? Because it says you're authorized to transfer up to $1 million of available bond funds that have already been allocated to certain projects, or how does that work?
Typically there's a bond allocation made for community colleges annually that we can use to build buildings and whatnot, and we can let those funds, we can save them up for large projects at DFA, or we can draw them down for smaller projects. So yeah, these funds are already made available. This is not asking for new money. These are existing funds that are made available by the Mississippi legislature and then kept at DFA for us to use on capital improvements and capital projects.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. But you still have to make the request for the funds from DFA, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct,
Mr.
Chairman.
It's for in emergency situations. It's just not, hey, let's go put up a sidewalk around the campus because we think it's a great idea. It's typically for emergency situations that are needed repairs.
That's correct. That's correct. To expedite, like I said, boilers, chillers, roofs that's gone bad, that's really leaky, and things like that, where you can bring in a reputable roofing contractor and do an R&R really quick and not slow the process down.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Senator Chasnoff for question.
Just a quick one. Would this help alleviate situations like the type of weather we've just experienced, or perhaps other occasions when we've had tornadoes come through and cause damage to the facilities?
Absolutely, if we could expedite that, because oftentimes even, if you have a tornado that goes through, you end up in a negotiation with an insurance carrier and possibly FEMA. We experienced that at Pearl River Community College after Hurricane Katrina. So if we could expedite some things like repairing a roof or replacing a roof really quick, and then possibly even getting the insurance to come back and refund it later. But sometimes those negotiations get really long, and it would help us get a safe roof back or chiller back for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Boyd?
Yes. Is this, it doesn't say emergency. It really doesn't have any definition
The bond fund itself, or the use of the $1 million of the bond funds? So the use of the $1 million, you know, we think of, it would be most handy during emergencies, but it could also be used for smaller projects like a roof, and we do not have to engage the Bureau of Buildings as much. And we've talked to Mr. Cornbreck, this will lighten their load as well. You know, they have architects and construction managers out on big projects. You know, to do an R&R on a $400,000 roof, you know, might not be the best use of their time. But we would still bid it out. We would still oversee the project. It would still follow state purchasing laws just like DFA does when they oversee a project for us. So it wouldn't always be an emergency. It could be a smaller project that we can expedite and lessen the workload on the Bureau of Buildings.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Boyd, you any more questions? Okay. Senator Blackman for a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is along the lines of what Senator Boyd is saying. Under the underlying portion does not address at all any definition of an emergency. And when you made your presentation, that's what you represented to this board, to this committee, that it was related to emergencies. You said provide heating for classrooms or for the dormitories. And this doesn't say that at all.
Well, I wouldn't say it would be exclusively for emergencies. Really, it would help us expedite projects, but it would be most handy in emergencies to be able to tap these funds to do a quick turnaround on a project. But really, the whole idea is to expedite and help DFA with their workload on small projects that we can oversee, and we often do if there's other funding available to do projects like this, that we oversee them when we don't use DFA. But you know, this is one of our major funding sources to build and repair buildings and do maintenance on campus. So if we could expedite that process, and that's what this bill is looking for, allow us that a little bit of flexibility with these funds to expedite projects as well.
And Mr. Chairman, if this is something that's great for the community of junior colleges, would it not also be great for our senior colleges?
Well, that's, something we can look at. I think that right now the IHL does have that ability. We passed a law, I think a year or two ago, that allows IHL to do that very thing. It's just the community colleges were not included in that. And I think it's a lot larger threshold on the universities, because a lot of them have staff on hand to handle some of these. But I do believe that the junior colleges are looking for a little flexibility as it relates to projects that we bond for already that are go-to improvements on campus, but it's also in emergency situations where I think this may be helpful to them to get around some of the procurement lag time going through DFA, I think is what they're attempting to do. Is there any scenario where a community college or junior college could go outside the realm of what the bonds are being utilized for and do other projects?
No, it's clear that this is for R&R, large projects like boilers, chillers, roofs, capital type investments. So we wouldn't use it to buy vehicles or anything like that. I mean, it's clear on what the use, and DFA will approve it, and they'll still look at the project and say, yeah, you can use this, whatever portion of this $1 million, $300,000-400,000, to do that roof or to buy that chiller. It's just that they won't have to bid it out and do all the work for us. We will
They'll
do
have
it.
oversight.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They will still oversee the money, the funding. They just won't manage the project completely like they do a dorm or a classroom building.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Senator Sparks.
I would like to offer an amendment at the proper time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Jordan, question?
Thank you, Mr. President. There are, 16 community colleges in Mississippi?
15 public, yes,
15.
sir.
Each one of those would be allowed up to $1 million to?
Yes, sir. All 15 colleges will equally participate in this.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other questions? Senator Sparks, you're recognized for your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer a reverse repeal. There's an amendment to this bill. I have some questions. I don't even mind potentially removing it when we get to the floor, but the $1 million does not say annually. It doesn't say how many times. We have 15 community colleges. One community college could make 16 requests. My community colleges, I want to talk to them. I represent two. If they support the bill, I want to support it, but I do need some questions answered, so I would just offer a reverse repealer would be my amendment.
Okay. You've heard
Mr. Chairman, can I add something in regards to that? There is a set amount that's legislated for each community college, and we can't spend more than what's been allocated for us in bond funds. For each college only gets a certain amount, so we couldn't ask for other colleges' funds. I just want to make
Okay.
sure that's clear.
Thank you. Any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, motion is to adopt the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion is title sufficient do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill, we're going to skip down while we have the president here. Go down to House Bill number 1197, dual-phase design build method of construction and contracting. If you would please give us an explanation.
Mr. Chairman, the idea behind this bill is to help us be a little more efficient when we're building. I'm thinking of dormitories and housing for students on our college campuses. If we could use, in a similar nature as House Bill 82, if we could use our bond funds to contract with a company to build, and I'm thinking of structures like duplexes, triplexes, brick on grade, more residential style construction, not so much commercial, to use for college student housing in lieu of big buildings, big dorms. It would save us a tremendous amount of money, and we could also expedite that for the community colleges. And I'll give you a good example. At East Mississippi Community College, we bought a number of Katrina cottages. If you'll remember how many Katrina cottages were out there after Katrina, we're using those for student housing, and that's temporary housing, and it's starting to wear out. And my idea, and the reason we're making this ask, rather than saving up $8, $10, $12 million in bond money to build a big dorm, I would like to phase that Katrina cottage housing out and build smaller duplex, triplex style construction in village style on our campus, and phase out house beds and phase in beds more quickly rather than wait until we get enough bond money saved up to build a large project. So we could work with the contractor, still following state contracting laws and purchasing laws, to come in and do a design build on that rather than having to go that slow process of going through and getting architects to design, large buildings. We can get pre-architecturally designed buildings and use that on campus.
Okay. So essentially, this is going to save money in multiple facets of construction on campus when you're bringing projects online that are too big to do in one phase.
Absolutely, it will save us money, and this is allowed on a case-by-case basis already. What we're asking is to allow us to do this, again, under $1 million threshold. DFA will still approve the project, but we're talking about structures such as, duplexes, triplexes that are more similar to a residential type build. Our campus, we don't really need high-density housing. We've got plenty of land, so we can spread this out and phase in beds for our students and replace these older residences that are wearing out. So it'll save us a lot of money. I feel like it probably saves us somewhere around 50%, to be honest, talking to some of the contractors that I've talked to in construction agencies.
Okay. All right. This is a strike-all from the House bill. It removed some language that dealt with reverse auctions that was stuck in the bill, and this just deals with the dual-phase construction portion of the bill. So that is an explanation of the strike-all. Are there any questions from the committee? All right. We have a motion to adopt the strike-all. All right. Motion is we adopt the strike-all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions on the strike-all? All right. Motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
The next bill on the calendar is House Bill 374. This is the distinctive motor vehicle tag bill we're going to use as an omnibus bill. I know several people have sent me text messages or emails about adding a tag. Just make sure you have your request into Ian sometime in the near future. We'll start trying to assemble the final version for conference, but this will be the vehicle we use for that purpose. So are there any questions on the bill? Yeah. We're going to, right now, I'm going to add a reverse repeal to the bill to keep it alive and get it to conference. So are there any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions for motion? All right, motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill is House Bill 425, ad valorem taxes, revise certain provisions regarding when an application for change of property assessment may be made. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill deals with property where structures have been damaged by fire or nature and has to do with the reevaluation of that property with the damage, with a significant change in value. It gives the person 18 months after the date of the accident if the tax assessor does not make the change. Would offer an amendment at the proper time to change that to 6 months. 18 may be proper, and we can always not take up the strike all on the floor if that's the case, but we'd like to go ahead and put it in there now to have it just in case. Is there any questions on?
Are there any questions on the bill?
Or the amendment?
All right, you've heard the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing none. For a motion?
Title sufficient, do pass as amended.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill is House Bill 499, the Qualified Equity Investment Tax Credit Bill. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like the House version, this bill just extends the repeal date for the new markets tax credit, and that's an explanation of the bill.
Extends it out to 2024, I believe.
Yes, sir.
On there.
4 years.
So are there any questions on the bill? Senator McMahon.
I have a question. Senator Johnson.
Sure.
Does this bill retain the amendments that we made in the Senate version?
I think we made amendments to the historic tax credit, but not the new markets tax credit.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions? All right. For a motion?
Title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. I'm going to skip down to House Bill 1230. Mississippi Development Authority allow businesses located on tribal lands to be eligible for certain discretionary programs, and recognize Senator Branning to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a companion bill to Senate Bill 2507 that this committee and the body so graciously helped me with earlier in session. And currently, businesses located on tribal property are not eligible for discretionary programs through MDA simply because the wording in our statute does not include, well, it says the current language is projects located within the state of Mississippi. So the purpose of the bill is just to clarify that we do intend for businesses that are physically located on tribal lands that are non-tribal businesses to be able to apply for and take advantage of these discretionary funds in MDA. 3 certain funds have been brought forward. Section 1 deals with the ACE Fund. Section 2, the Mississippi Industry Incentive Financing Revolving Fund. And Section 3, the Mississippi Existing Industry Productivity Loan Fund. So we simply brought those sections forward. And as you can see, beginning in lines 38, we're simply adding language that's including any federal Indian reservation located within the geographical boundaries of Mississippi. And that's the explanation of the bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the bill? Senator Jordan.
Clarification on discretionary funds, what are you?
So when I say discretionary funds, I'm referring to various programs that MDA offers for businesses within Mississippi. And they have different qualifications of those programs, Senator Jordan. And the 3 programs within this bill that I've just mentioned, I'm happy to get you the qualifications of those funds. If you'd like to see that information, I can get that for you from MDA.
Okay, just
Thank you.
word discretionary kind of gone. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, for a motion? Motion is title sufficient do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. We'll go back to House Bill 520. This is the use tax revised provisions regarding funds distributed to municipalities and counties for road improvements. What this does is will allow our cities and counties to take the use tax they get and use it to leverage to fund, do bonds or borrow money against and use it to pay those payments on those funds. My concern is we haven't gotten up to the full amount yet, and we don't know what use tax are going to be available year to year. They do fluctuate. I would probably think that putting a percentage of use funds allowable for that may be beneficial to keep people from overextending themselves and you know, using 100% of their funds dedicated to bonds, and next year the use funds go down, use tax funds go down, and then they're stuck trying to figure out where they're going to get the money to pay their bonds or bank loans or whatever they get to do road projects. So I'm going to offer a reverse repealer for this bill to take it to conference to think about what would be a good compromise to come up with to allow them to use these funds. Obviously, it doesn't change the amount of money that they have to put in for their portion of the match, but if the funds can be used, what is a good number to allow? So that's kind of, I think, what the question is how much percentage of the use tax funds they get do we allow them to use? So that is an explanation of the bill, and I would offer that amendment at this time. Are there any questions on the amendment? All right. The motion is to adopt the amendment, reverse repealer to this bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill is House Bill 638, revised various provisions related to distilleries. I'm going to recognize Senator Boyd to explain.
This is the same bill that we passed out of the Senate. It has to do with small batch distilleries and allowing those small batch distilleries to be able to serve, and we have very few of them in the state. They would be allowed to serve their products as people are touring and that. So it also lowers the permitting fee for these small batch distilleries that they have to pay annually. And I'll entertain questions on that. I know y'all have heard this bill before a couple of times, so I'll entertain questions.
All right. Are there any questions on the bill? Senator Blunt.
Is there a reverse? I have the first distillery in the state, legal distillery in the state, in my district, and I'm just, I haven't had time to examine everything. Is there a reverse repealer in this bill, Senator Boyd?
No, there's not a reverse repealer in this bill.
And what's the status of the bill that we sent over? Do you know if they've passed out our Senate bill?
They are in their Ways and Means Committee right now, so I don't know the status of that legislation.
Okay. Well, I may get with you before we get to the floor and see if there's, make sure I'm looking out for my folks, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blunt. Any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Next bill is House Bill 746, the Motor Vehicle Commission Law revised regarding warranty reimbursement. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the same as what we've already passed in the Senate already. What it does is deals with the relationship between automobile dealers and manufacturers when with payment for warranty work, warranty based on either a length of time or mileage of a new vehicle. The factory warrants certain parts and labor that would malfunction. Currently, 46 other states have laws that allow for or make the manufacturer pay the dealer a market rate. In Mississippi, we are one of 4 states that do not. This would put us on par with those others and allow for our dealers to be paid a market rate for doing that work. We have to approve this because of the franchise law, which has been in effect since 1942, and that's an explanation of the bill.
All right, you've heard an explanation. Are there any questions on the bill? All right, motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Next is House Bill 945, revise the number of qualified electors to require petition for election to prohibit or authorize light beer, wine, and spirits. Recognize Senator Fillingane to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill came from some of my local representatives, so they have asked me to handle it, and I'm going to do my very best, although I'm no expert in this particular area. So my understanding is if you are in a dry county and your city or town would like to vote to either have, I think there's separate law for alcohol based on what it is. So if it's what you would call the light wine, beer, and spirits, there's one particular threshold. If you're talking about what is commonly referred to as hard liquor, you have a slightly different threshold. And my understanding and appreciation is what this bill seeks to do is to make those two uniform. Because right now, apparently, if you are trying to bring in what's considered the harder liquor, the whiskey, that type of stuff, you have to have, as far as signatures on the petition to bring it to a vote, of the registered voter signatures, 1,500 in number or 20%, whichever is less. However, on the other category, the beer, the light wine, it's just 20%. So you can see that in many instances, the 20% would be much higher than 1,500 votes, depending on the voter rolls and how well they're reflective of the number of people in town. Of course, in some instances, it wouldn't be. It would be the same or maybe not as bad, but I assume, since this is coming from my representatives in Lamar County, there are some towns there who they would prefer to have the 1,500 or less option as opposed to just the straight 20% option, which would be well in excess of the 1,500. That is the explanation. You can see on House Bill 945, it's a fairly short bill. You can see that language being inserted on lines 26 and 27, which is the 20% is already the current law, so that would be for the hard liquor. And you see in there the insertion or 1,500, whichever number is the lesser. That language is again inserted in line 41, and that may be it. I think that's it. So those two places, and 95. Thank you. My desk mate is keeping me straight here. So that's what this bill seeks to do, just to make the two versions uniform. So it would be 20% of your elected voters signing petitions or 1,500 petition signatures, whichever is less. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, you heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? Seeing none, for a motion. The motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Next bill is House Bill 955, Abandoned Mobile Homes, Established Procedure to Dispose of. Senator Fillingane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the companion bill to Senate Bill 2811, which is the same identical bill, I'm told, by Ms. Hall, who has been helping us with this from the manufactured housing. This is a bill that deals, again, with how to go about if you're either a private landowner and you have a mobile home that has been abandoned on your property, or it applies equally to if you have a mobile home park and you have a mobile home or various mobile homes that have been abandoned. It sets out the framework, as you'll recall, of what is required to give due process. So there's a notice to the owner of the abandonment, a proceeding filed in court by the community or landowner, the community owner meaning the trailer park owner, or the landowner, the appointment of a commissioner for the finances and the public notice of the sale, a public sale conducted by the sheriff after newspaper notice and posting, a bill of sale to the highest bidder, and confirmation by the court of the distribution of those proceeds, with proceeds from the remaining funds after the sale expenses, unpaid taxes, debts, and liens being paid first, then to the owner, or for removal of the uninhabitable home. If the owner does not appear in court, the owner's funds are paid to the treasurer on behalf of the owner, and they seek to then try to find that person. So it's the same exact bill, it's a companion bill, so that's a brief explanation. I'll be glad to go into more detail if anyone would like.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, for motion?
Title sufficient to pass, I guess, as just title
Title
sufficient
sufficient
to
to
pass.
pass. All right, the motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator. Next is House Bill 997, alcoholic beverage remove DOR from being wholesale distributor, authorized issuance of wholesaler permits. This is a strike all to the House bill, and basically it puts the Senate language of bringing the code sections forward and a reverse repealer to take it to conference to work on a final version that we're going to have kind of closer to the, before conference. I'll have a hearing to explain kind of what the Senate position is, so we're not going to the floor with a ballot, or not a ballot, excuse me, a bill that is kind of, no one really knows what's in it. But we have been working on this over the short, brief respite we had from the session after October, and trying to come up to a final version of what we're going to push going forward. So the strike all does have a reverse repealer in it, and it just brings forward the code sections like the Senate version did. So that is the explanation. Are there any questions on the strike all? Senator Sparks.
Is this 997?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at the big packet. I just don't see a reverse repealer, Mr. Chairman, unless you have a sub.
It's on line 392.
Okay. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. Are there any questions on the strike all? Motion is to adopt the strike all. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions on the bill? All right. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Bill will be moved out. Next is House Bill 1091, light wine, light spirit producer, product, and beer, authorized microbreweries and revise various sections of the law. I'm going to recognize Mr. Ricky Brown to come up and explain the bill. I know this is a kind of a work in progress between all the sides, and I think they're getting to a final compromise, but I know there's probably a little more work that needs to be done on this. But go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The strike-all version before y'all this morning is a collaboration of agreements and compromises made by the beer distributors, the package stores, and Mississippi craft brewers. The major changes in the strike-all before you, as opposed to the bill y'all considered back in early February, is that the alcohol content for these light spirit products that was legalized last year comes from 8% in the proposal down to 6.5%. And also it institutes a maximum container size on these products from 4 to 6.5% of 500 milliliters, which is a 16.9 ounce container that my members have agreed to. And the package stores have agreed to this language. But strike-all does contain a reverse repealer to where once the final version is there, we can make sure that everything that everybody has agreed to is in the final version. Be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay. This bill does have, strike-all does have a reverse repealer in it, and we're going to make sure that everybody is good with the final version before we proceed on the floor. But if there are no other questions, motion is to adopt the strike-all. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions? Seeing none. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The bill will be reported out. Thank you. Next is House Bill 1095, the Department of Revenue, authorized to compromise and settle certain tax liabilities. Our friends from DOR are here. Meg, would you like to come up and go over this version of the bill for us? I believe it's very, or Jan, who's going to? Jan's, okay. This is similar to the version I think we passed in the Senate.
Good morning. This bill simply allows the department to enter into an offer and compromise with taxpayers who have a doubtful claim, and this defines a doubtful claim as one where a lien has been issued and regular collection processes have not been effectual. This provides that the commissioner will get with the Attorney General for the approval of the offer and compromise.
Okay, and refresh our memory, in between the time somebody, I guess, appeals, the only, or before they appeal, between the time the lien is set in place and they appeal, y'all are not allowed to settle, but after the appeal is heard, and if they still have the lien, you're allowed to settle then?
Depends on who has jurisdiction in that. So we have 60 days between an assessment and the first level of appeal with the Department of Revenue. After that, taxpayers may appeal to the Board of Tax Appeals, and at that point, it's still within our jurisdiction, but once the BTA has issued an order, it's in their jurisdiction. And so the only way we cannot offer, at this point, we cannot settle for anything less than what the BTA order is.
Okay.
Unless then the taxpayer appeals to court.
Goes to court, and then you can, once it goes to court, then you can take a different, okay.
Correct.
That's what it does. So this allows you throughout the process to be able to settle a claim.
And at any point afterwards, too.
Okay. All right. You've heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Is there a motion? Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. House Bill 1135. This is the bill that allows for the delivery of wine and spirits to the home. This bill, we passed a version of this bill in the Senate. The only difference in this bill, and I'll need to do an amendment to strike some lines, and I think line 46. On line 46, it says, "The delivery service permittee may act as an agent of the retail permittee in the collection of payments from the sale of alcohol beverages, beer, light wine, or light spirit product." We need to strike that language. They are not acting as an agent, they are a facilitator. The rest of the language is, yeah. So the amendment is going to be from lines 46 down to line 49, where it says "but," and we'll strike that from the bill. That this is the permit process by which companies would have to get a permit from the Department of Revenue to deliver. They have to have check verification. All the things that we discussed in the Senate version are still here. But this is the House version that came over to us, so we are going to get this on the calendar and decide whose side's going to take up which bill. So that's the explanation of the bill. If there are any questions on the amendment? Well, hold on a second. Senator Sojourner?
I have an amendment at the appropriate time.
Okay. I'll recognize you right after this amendment. Are there any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Senator Sojourner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment that comes from the Mississippi Hospitality and Restaurant Association. It matches existing language that's already in law that pertains to the fact that you can sell one bottle of wine per every 2 entrees. The language that they would like to add to this bill, and per the advice of counsel, they have suggested that we make this as a conceptual amendment so that Ian can fine-tune some of the language before it comes to the floor. But if you will look on lines 23, where it says may contract with the holder of a package retailer's permit, following that, we'd like to add the language or an on-premise retailer's permit, basically just saying that the restaurant can sell 2 entrees with a bottle of wine for delivery. Like I said, they can currently do that in the restaurant. This would just be to allow them to do that per orders that are for delivery.
Okay. You've heard an explanation of the amendment. Any questions? Senator Sparks, question.
Yes, question, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I assume that would be on a to-go order, for instance? and
Correct.
It would just make it equitable?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the amendment? All right, you've heard an explanation of the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, for a motion? Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill is House Bill 1139, income sales and use taxes. Remove requirement that certain taxpayers pay June tax liability on or before June 25th. This is a strike-all, basically putting in the Senate language on how we wind down this 75% estimate on your June taxes that you have to pay in June instead of July. This is basically putting the Senate language back in there the way we looked at winding it down. So that is an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions on the bill? All right. Motions, we do move adoption of the strike-all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Senator Parker, motion title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Bill will be reported out. Motion to rise and report. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, hold on, we have one other bill that's on 1284. My apologies, I forgot. 1284. It's a separate bill that's passed. It's separate. Yeah. We have the bill. All right, House Bill 1284 is the tag fund bill that basically allows Department of Revenue, and I'll let them kind of explain some of the nuances to tags, but apparently this is going to set up a fund that will allow some of the cost of the fund that are collected to go into a fund where they can actually buy the tags, the decals, and have them ready for the counties as they hand them out. It does lapse over anything over a certain amount. I believe it's $500,000. $500,000. The Senate version had $600,000. They put $500,000 shall lapse into the general fund, so it'll keep a balance of $500,000 in there for DOR to pay for specifically tags and decals and getting them shipped to the counties and receiving them. So it does not go to any other cost or use, so there's no way that funds can be expended on anything other than the tags. So that's the explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? Seeing none, for a motion. Motion is title sufficient to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion, rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank y'all.